The maid left a note. "I found this in your husband's office. Thought you should know." I almost missed it. Anne, our maid, had left earlier than usual that morning, and I'd assumed she'd forgotten to clean the kitchen counter. But there it was, a folded piece of paper next to a small velvet pouch I'd never seen before. Her handwriting, usually reserved for grocery lists, spelled out words that made my stomach drop. "I found this in your husband's office. Thought you should know." The pouch felt heavier than it looked. Inside, I discovered burnt herbs that smelled like sage mixed with something bitter, a lock of dark hair tied with red thread, and a piece of paper with my name written over and over in a script I didn't recognize. My hands trembled as I examined each item. The hair wasn't mine. It was too coarse, too dark. The paper had strange symbols drawn around my name, and at the bottom a date from last month. Eric's office had always been his sanctuary, a place I respected as his private workspace. But this felt like a violation of everything I thought I knew about our marriage. The burnt herbs left ash on my fingertips, and I noticed they'd been mixed with what looked like dried rose petals and something that glittered like crushed glass. My name is Laura, and this is my revenge story. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a comment with the city you're watching from. It really helps me bring you more stories. I heard Eric's car pulling into the driveway. My first instinct was to hide everything, to pretend I'd never seen it. But the weight of that pouch in my hand, the implications of what it might mean, made me stay rooted to the spot. Whatever this was, it had been hidden in my own home, with my name on it. I deserved answers. I spread the contents on the kitchen island, arranging them like evidence in a crime scene. The afternoon sun caught the glitter in the herbs, making them sparkle ominously. I photographed everything with my phone: the pouch, the herbs, the hair, the paper. If Eric tried to gaslight me, I'd have proof. His key turned in the lock. I straightened my shoulders, gripping the edge of the counter. This wasn't how I'd imagined my Tuesday afternoon would go. But sometimes life hands you a velvet pouch full of mysteries and forces you to become someone you never thought you'd be. The door opened, and I heard his familiar footsteps in the hallway. I picked up the note Anne had left, holding it like a shield. "Eric," I called out, my voice steadier than I felt. "We need to talk about what your maid found in your office." His footsteps stopped. The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken truths. Then I heard him walking again, slower this time, toward the kitchen, toward me, toward the evidence that would shatter the illusion of our perfect life. Eric's face went through a series of expressions I'd never seen before: confusion, shock, then anger. He stared at the items on the counter like they were poisonous snakes ready to strike. "What the hell is this?" he asked, picking up the pouch and turning it over in his hands. "Where did you get this?" "Anne found it in your office," I said, watching his every micro-expression. "Hidden behind your filing cabinet. You want to tell me why there's a pouch with burnt herbs and my name on it in your private space?" He dropped the pouch like it burned him. "Laura, I swear to God I've never seen this before. I don't even know what this is." His hands ran through his hair, a gesture I knew meant genuine distress. Someone must have put it there. This is insane. I wanted to believe him. After years of marriage, I thought I knew when Eric was lying. But the evidence was right there, and someone had hidden it in his office. Who has access to your office besides you? Just you, Anne when she cleans, and... He paused, his face paling. My mother has a key. She insisted on having one when we moved in, said it was for emergencies. Mary, of course, the woman who'd never quite approved of me, who still introduced me as Eric's wife instead of using my name, who found subtle ways to undermine me at every family gathering. But this was beyond passive-aggressive comments about my cooking. "Your mother practices this kind of thing?" I asked, gesturing at the herbs. Eric shook his head vigorously. "No, she's Catholic. She goes to Mass every Sunday. This looks like, I don't know, witchcraft or something. She wouldn't..." But I saw the doubt creeping into his eyes. We both knew Mary had her quirks, her superstitions. She kept evil eye charms in her car, sprinkled salt at doorways, and had once given me a protection bracelet that I'd politely worn once before storing it away. "We need to check the office," I said. "See if there's anything else." We went together, Eric leading the way with reluctance. His office, usually meticulously organized, looked normal at first glance. But when we moved the filing cabinet, we found more than dust bunnies. There was a small circle drawn in what looked like chalk, with another pouch in the center. "This wasn't here last week," Eric whispered. "I moved this cabinet to get to some old tax files. This is fresh." That night, we barely slept. Every creak of the house made me jump. Eric installed a new lock on his office door and said we'd change the main locks in the morning. But as I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Around midnight, I heard something that made my blood run cold. Whispers, soft and rhythmic, coming from somewhere near the office door. I nudged Eric, but he was deep asleep. I grabbed my phone, ready to record, and crept toward the sound. The whispering stopped the moment I touched the doorknob. On the other side of the door, silence. But the air smelled of burnt sage and something else. The same bitter scent from the pouch. The next morning brought a horror I couldn't have imagined. I woke to find another velvet pouch on my pillow, right next to my head. Eric's side of the bed was empty. He'd left early for a meeting. My scream probably woke the entire neighborhood. This time, the pouch contained a photo of our wedding day, but my face had been scratched out with something sharp. Underneath, in that same strange handwriting, "She doesn't belong." My hands shook as I called Eric. Someone was in our bedroom, while we slept. They left another pouch. I could hear my voice rising with hysteria. "On my pillow, Eric. On my pillow." "Call the police," he said immediately. "I'm coming home. Don't touch anything else." But I'd already touched it. I'd already seen what was inside. The violation of it, someone standing over me while I slept, placing that thing next to my head, made me want to vomit. I ran to the bathroom and locked the door, sitting on the floor with my back against it, clutching my phone. The police treated it like a bad prank. No forced entry, nothing stolen, just some harmless herbs and a damaged photo. They took a report but made it clear they had real crimes to investigate. The officer suggested we check our security footage if we had any. We did. Eric had installed cameras after a neighborhood break-in last year. We huddled over his laptop, scanning through the night's recordings. The front door camera showed nothing unusual. The back door, same thing. But the camera in the hallway, the one facing our bedroom door, told a different story. At 2:14 a.m., a figure appeared. Small, wearing dark clothes and what looked like a shawl over their head. They moved with familiar confidence, not sneaking, but walking like they belonged there. The figure entered our bedroom and emerged minutes later. As they passed under the hallway light, the shawl slipped for just a moment. Mary, Eric's mother, had been in our house, in our bedroom, while we slept. "No," Eric breathed. "No, this can't be right. She wouldn't. Mom wouldn't do this." But the timestamp didn't lie. The video quality wasn't great, but we both knew that walk, that posture. I'd watched that woman navigate our house countless times during holiday dinners and family gatherings. "We have to confront her," I said. Eric was already dialing. His face cycled through emotions as the phone rang. When Mary answered, her voice chirpy and innocent through the speaker, something cold settled in my chest. "Mom, we need to talk. Can you come over?" "Of course, dear. Is everything all right? You sound upset." "Just come over, please." While we waited, I gathered all the evidence, both pouches, their contents, photos I'd taken, and the security footage queued up on the laptop. Eric paced the living room like a caged animal. Neither of us spoke about what this meant, what it might do to his relationship with his mother, to our family. When Mary arrived, she was carrying a casserole dish and wearing her usual smile. "I brought lunch," she announced. "You sounded so stressed on the phone, and I thought—" "Mom," Eric cut her off. We know you were here last night." Her smile flickered but didn't fall. She set the casserole on the coffee table and smoothed her skirt. "What are you talking about, dear?" I hit play on the laptop. We watched her watch herself on the screen. Her face never changed, but her hands gripped her purse handle until her knuckles went white. When it was over, she looked at us with those same innocent eyes and said, "That could be anyone." Mary's performance was Oscar-worthy. She sat in our living room, the very picture of a concerned mother-in-law, shaking her head at the security footage. "This is very disturbing," she said, her voice dripping with worry. "Someone who looks like me breaking into your home? Have you considered that someone might be trying to frame me?" Eric looked torn between his loyalty to his mother and the evidence before his eyes. I felt no such conflict. "Mary, we have you on camera. That's your walk, your build, even your favorite shawl." She turned those sharp eyes on me. "My dear Laura, I have many shawls, and I'm hardly the only woman my age and size in this city. Why would I break into my own son's home?" "You tell us," I shot back. "Why would you leave pouches full of herbs and hair in Eric's office? Why would you scratch out my face in our wedding photo?" Her face shifted, just for a moment, into something harder, before returning to its mask of concern. "These are serious accusations. I think you're under a lot of stress. Maybe you should see someone." There it was, the gaslighting I'd been expecting. Make me look crazy, unstable, paranoid. I'd seen her do it to Eric's sister when she'd tried to set boundaries. But I had evidence this time. "Mom," Eric finally spoke up. "The timing matches perfectly. The figure enters at 2:14 a.m., and that's exactly when we found the pouch this morning. Your car has that distinctive parking light that blinks. We can see it in the street camera footage." Mary's hands fluttered to her chest. "You're checking street cameras for my car? Oh, Eric, what has she done to you? Making you suspicious of your own mother?" The way she said "she," like I was something distasteful, made my skin crawl. Anne chose that moment to arrive for her scheduled cleaning. She froze in the doorway, taking in the scene. The three of us in a tense triangle, the laptop still displaying security footage, the pouches on the table. "I'm sorry," Anne stammered. "I can come back." "No," I said quickly. "Anne, please, we need to ask you something." Anne looked like she wanted to bolt. Her eyes darted between us, lingering on Mary with something like fear. "Yes, Mrs. Laura? Have you seen Mrs. Patterson in the house before? When we weren't home?" Anne's face went pale. She gripped her cleaning supplies tighter. Mary's expression turned thunderous. "How dare you interrogate the help about me?" But Anne, brave Anne, straightened her shoulders. "Yes," she said quietly. "I've seen Mrs. Patterson here, twice before. Once in Mr. Eric's office and once in your bedroom. I thought she was allowed." The room erupted. Mary stood, indignant. Eric demanded dates and times. I felt vindicated but horrified. Anne looked ready to cry. "I have a key," Mary declared. "My son gave me a key for emergencies. If I've used it to check on my family's well-being, what crime is that?" "You left witchcraft in my office," Eric said, his voice flat. "You put something on Laura's pillow while she slept. That's not checking on us, Mom. I don't even know what that is." Mary gathered her purse, her spine rigid with offense. "I see how it is. She's poisoned you against me. This is exactly what I was trying to prevent." She moved toward the door, then turned back. "That pouch? It's protection. Everything I've done has been to protect you from her influence. But you're too blind to see it." She left, taking her casserole with her. Anne excused herself to start cleaning upstairs, clearly desperate to escape the family drama. Eric and I sat in the ruins of what had been a normal morning, staring at the evidence of his mother's bizarre campaign against me. "Protection," I repeated. "She's protecting you from me?" Eric rubbed his face. "I don't understand any of this. My mother goes to church. She hosts prayer groups. Since when does she practice whatever this is? but I was already pulling out my phone, searching for the ingredients we'd found. Burnt sage for cleansing, hair for binding, the repeated name for focus and control, the scratched photo for separation. This wasn't protection. This was an attack. The old photo album sat dusty in our basement, one of many boxes from Eric's childhood that Mary had insisted we keep. I'd gone looking for answers, some clue about when his mother had developed this interest in what I could only call folk magic. What I found instead made my skin crawl. There was Eric, maybe 7 years old, standing stiffly in front of their old house. Normal enough, except for what was drawn on the back of the photo. The same strange symbols I'd seen on the paper with my name, circling his image like a cage. The handwriting was younger, but unmistakably Mary's. Photo after photo showed the same thing. Little Eric at various ages, always with those symbols on the back. I brought the album upstairs where Eric was stress cooking, his usual coping mechanism. "You need to see this," I said, spreading the photos on the counter. His face went white as he recognized the symbols. I remember these photos. Mom always insisted on taking one on my birthday, said it was for protection. He picked up one where he looked about 12, unsmiling and uncomfortable. She'd make me stand in specific spots, always at sunset. "Eric, this isn't normal Catholic mother behavior." He laughed bitterly. "Nothing about my childhood was normal. You know what? I just remembered something. Mom used to have these prayer meetings with her friend Rosa, only they'd burn herbs and chant in Spanish. I thought it was just cultural, you know. But looking back, I was about to respond when my phone buzzed. A text from Anne. "Can we talk privately?" "Not at your house." I showed Eric. "She knows something." "Go," he said. "I'll keep looking through these boxes. Maybe there are more clues." I met Anne at a coffee shop downtown. She looked exhausted, constantly checking over her shoulder. When she saw me, relief flooded her face. "Mrs. Laura, I'm scared," she said without preamble. "After today, I went home and found this under my door." She pulled out a folded paper, written in Mary's handwriting. "You saw nothing. Say nothing. She threatened you?" Anne shook her head. "It's more than that. My grandmother, she knows about these things. The pouches, the herbs. It's brujeria, witchcraft. The kind meant to break bonds between people." She leaned closer. "Your mother-in-law, she's been doing this for months. I've cleaned up the herbs, found strange things. I thought it was just superstition, but my grandmother says it's serious." "What kind of things?" "Photographs buried in your plants. Salt lines that appear overnight. Once, I found your hairbrush in Mr. Eric's office trash with half the hair cut out." Anne's hands trembled around her coffee cup. "I should have said something sooner, but I needed this job. I'm sorry." I reached across to squeeze her hand. "You're telling me now. That's what matters." "Anne, I need you to be honest. Is this the first time she's done something like this?" Anne bit her lip, then shook her head slowly. "There was another woman." My blood chilled. "What?" "Before you. Maybe 6 years ago. Eric was dating someone else. A teacher, I think. Nice lady. Mrs. Patterson started coming over more often, always when they were out. One day the girlfriend got very sick. Mysterious illness. Doctors couldn't figure it out. She broke up with Eric from her hospital bed. Said she couldn't explain but needed to get away from the family. She moved across the country. I sat back, processing. This wasn't about me. This was about control. Mary had done this before, would do it again if necessary. I wasn't her first victim, just her latest. "Anne, I need your help. Will you testify about what you've seen? Write it all down?" Anne looked terrified but nodded. "My grandmother says people like Mrs. Patterson, they don't stop until someone stops them. But Mrs. Laura..." She paused, gathering courage. "It's not about love. My grandmother thinks it's about something else. Money, maybe? Control? These spells, they're meant to isolate Eric, make him dependent only on her." As I drove home, Anne's words echoed. "Not about love. Then what?" Eric was successful, yes, but not wealthy. Unless... I remembered Mary's recent questions about Eric's new business venture, her sudden interest in his financial planning. The pieces started forming a picture I didn't like. I pulled over to text Eric. "Don't sign anything your mother gives you. We'll explain when home." His response was immediate. "Too late. Signed power of attorney last month for emergency purposes." "Why?" My hands shook as I typed back. "Coming home now. Don't let her in the house." But I had a feeling it was already too late for warnings. Mary had been playing a longer game than any of us realized, and we'd just discovered we were already several moves behind. The woman lived in a narrow townhouse, squeezed between a botanica and a check-cashing place. Rosa Medina, Mary's old prayer partner, according to the address Anne's grandmother had provided. I'd told Eric I was going grocery shopping. He was still reeling from the power of attorney revelation, going through every document his mother had ever asked him to sign. Rosa answered the door wrapped in colorful shawls, her eyes sharp despite her age. "You're Eric's wife," she said. Not a question. "I wondered when you'd come." Her living room smelled of candle wax and dried herbs. Religious icons mixed with other symbols I didn't recognize covered every surface. She gestured for me to sit, then studied me for a long moment. "Mary Patterson came to me years ago," she began without prompting. "Wanted to learn how to keep her son close. I taught her protection prayers, blessing rituals, but she wanted more. Always more. The pouches in our house. Binding spells," Rosa interrupted. "Break bonds between husband and wife. I refused to teach her those, but she found other ways. The internet, probably. Or that woman in Riverside who charges too much and asks no questions." I pulled out my phone, showing her photos of what we'd found. Rosa's face darkened with each image. This is beyond what I feared. The hair binding. The name repetition. She's not just trying to separate you. She's trying to erase you from his life entirely. "Can you help us?" Rosa stood, moving to a cabinet filled with glass jars. "I don't practice that way anymore, but I can tell you what she's planning next." She pulled down a dusty journal, flipping through pages. "Here. The ritual she asked about. If she's escalating, this is where she's headed." I read the page she indicated. A ceremony requiring personal items from both parties, performed during a new moon. The goal, complete spiritual dominance over the target. The next new moon was in 3 days. "She needs something more from you," Rosa explained. "Something intimate, blood, saliva, or..." She stopped, staring at me intently. "You're wearing your wedding ring." My hand went automatically to the ring. "Of course I am. Has it been off your finger recently? For cleaning, maybe? Medical procedures?" I thought back. "I lost it for a few days last month. Found it in my jewelry box, but I swear I left it on the bathroom counter." Rosa's expression told me everything. Mary had taken it, used it, returned it. I'd been wearing a weaponized ring for weeks. "Take it off," Rosa ordered. "Now." I struggled with the ring. It had been loose when I lost it, but now it seemed stuck. When it finally came free, there was a red mark underneath, perfectly circular, like a burn that hadn't healed. "She's been siphoning your energy," Rosa said grimly, "feeding it to her own purposes. This is darker than I imagined Mary capable of. What does she want?" Anne's grandmother said something about it not being about love. Rosa laughed, but it was bitter. Mary Patterson loves only one thing more than her son: power. She married into money, lost it in the divorce. Eric's father left her comfortable but not wealthy. Now Eric has this new business, these opportunities. She needs him under her thumb to access it. The power of attorney gives her control if anything happens to you. If you were to get sick, have an accident, become unstable. Rosa's eyes bored into mine. "She's creating a paper trail of your instability. The police report about harassment, you checking street cameras, accusing her of break-ins. From the outside, you look paranoid." My stomach dropped. She was right. Every reaction I'd had played into a narrative Mary was crafting. Crazy daughter-in-law harasses devoted mother. If something happened to me, who would question it? What do I do? Rosa returned to her cabinet, pulling out items. First, protect yourself. Then, turn her own weapons against her. She's violated sacred laws with this magic. There are consequences. She handed me a small bag. Wear this. Don't let Eric touch it. His energy is compromised by years of her influence. As I prepared to leave, Rosa grabbed my arm. There's something else. Check your home's foundation, especially near the master bedroom. If she's planning what I think, she's already planted the final component. I drove home with Rosa's protection charm burning against my chest and her warnings echoing in my head. In our driveway, I saw Mary's car. Through the window, I could see her and Eric at the kitchen table, papers spread between them. She was crying, Eric comforting her. I sat in my car, watching this performance, understanding finally what I was up against. This wasn't a mother's misguided love. This was a calculated campaign to destroy me, and she just made her next move. Mary's tears were perfectly timed, I realized, as I entered my own home like an intruder. She looked up with red-rimmed eyes, clutching Eric's hand across the kitchen table. Documents spread between them like tarot cards predicting my doom. "Laura," she exclaimed, voice trembling. "Thank God you're here. I've been so worried about you." Eric looked exhausted. "Mom's been explaining about the protection rituals. She says you're in danger." I almost laughed. The audacity of it. Positioning herself as my protector while actively destroying my life. What kind of danger, Mary? She dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. "There's negative energy attached to you, dear. I could sense it from the moment Eric introduced us. I've only been trying to cleanse your aura, to protect my son from his wife," I interrupted. "With binding spells and hair stealing?" Her face hardened for just a second before the mask slipped back. "I don't know what you're talking about. These accusations? Laura, you're scaring me. Eric, she needs help." I saw what she was doing, every word carefully chosen to make me sound unhinged. But I had Rosa's warnings fresh in my mind. Instead of exploding, I smiled. "You're right, Mary. I have been acting paranoid. I'm sorry." The words tasted like ash, but I saw Eric relax slightly. "Maybe we should start fresh. Would you like some tea?" Mary blinked, thrown by my sudden shift. "That would be nice." As I filled the kettle, I noticed the documents on the table. Medical power of attorney, financial directives, all with Eric's signature and Mary as the beneficiary if I was incapacitated. My hand stayed steady as I set out cups. "Eric," I said casually, "your friend James called earlier. Something about the business insurance papers?" Eric frowned. "James didn't mention anything yesterday. He said it was urgent. Maybe you should call him back." I handed him his phone, knowing James would keep him busy with questions about their startup. As Eric stepped out to make the call, Mary and I were left alone. She dropped her tearful act immediately. "Clever," she said, "but not clever enough." "I know what you're doing," I replied, keeping my voice low. "Rosa Medina told me everything." Her face went white. "Rosa has no business interfering in your plans to spiritually dominate your son, to use me as a battery for your spells." I set her tea down harder than necessary. "It's over, Mary." She laughed, actually laughed. "Over? Sweet girl, I've been preparing for this moment far longer than you've been in the picture. Do you know why Eric's last girlfriend really left? She got a job offer across the country. Funny how that happened right after she started getting those headaches. The ones that only stopped when she moved away. My skin crawled, but I kept my expression neutral. That won't work on me, won't it? Mary sipped her tea calmly. You've been wearing that ring I blessed, sleeping in the bed I've protected, living in the house where I've laid my intentions into every corner. You think one visit to Rosa changes anything? I think you're a sad woman who's so afraid of being alone that she'd destroy her son's happiness to keep him close. That hit. Mary's mask slipped completely, revealing something vicious underneath. I gave up everything for that boy. My youth, my marriage, my dreams. He owes me, and no little gold digger is going to waltz in and steal what I've earned. I'm not stealing anything. I love Eric. Love? She spat the word. What would you know about love? I carried him for 9 months, raised him alone after his father abandoned us for a younger woman. Sacrificed everything. And you think your 3 years of marriage compares? Eric's voice drifted from the other room, still on the phone. Mary leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. In 3 days, during the new moon, I'm going to complete what I started, and there's nothing you or Rosa or anyone can do to stop it. Eric will see you for what you are, a distraction, a mistake. He'll beg me to help him get rid of you. Like his ex? Or were there others? She smiled, the kind of smile that belonged in nightmares. 2 before her. One during college who got a scholarship to study abroad. Another who suddenly decided she was gay. Amazing what people discover about themselves when properly motivated. I felt sick. Eric had mentioned those relationships, how they'd ended abruptly, how confused he'd been. All this time, his mother had been pulling strings, manipulating his life like a demented puppet master. Get out of my house, I said. Your house? Mary stood, gathering her purse. We'll see how long it remains yours. Oh, and dear, you might want to check under your bedroom floor. I left you a little gift during my last visit. She swept out, just as Eric returned, looking confused. Where's Mom going? She had to leave, I said, my mind racing. Eric, we need to talk, really talk, about your past relationships, about your mother, about what's been happening in this house. Eric sat in stunned silence as I told him everything. Rosa's revelations, his mother's threats, the truth about his ex-girlfriends. With each word, I watched something die in his eyes. The image of the mother he thought he knew crumbled like the burnt herbs we'd found. She said that? About Claire and Jessica? His voice was hollow. They left because of her? She manipulated them out of your life, and she's trying to do the same to me. Eric stood abruptly, pacing our living room like a caged animal. I need to check something. He disappeared into our bedroom, and I heard him moving furniture. A few minutes later, he called out, his voice tight with anger. I found him kneeling by our bed, a section of floorboard pried up. In the hollow space beneath, wrapped in black cloth, was another collection of items. Our wedding photo, but with Eric cut out and saved while my image was burned around the edges. Dried flowers from my bouquet. A pair of my underwear I thought I'd lost in the laundry. And at the bottom, a business card. Riverside Spiritual Services. Eric read, Mama Elena, binding, banishing, and influence work. That's who your mother learned from after Rosa refused to teach her the darker arts. Eric sank onto the bed, the evidence in his hands. She's been in our bedroom, under our bed while we slept. Christ, Laura, I gave her a key. I made this possible. She's your mother. You trusted her. No. His voice turned hard. Mothers don't do this. This is sick, obsessive, criminal. He looked up at me. We're going to the police. Real police, not the local station. FBI if we have to. This is stalking, breaking and entering, harassment. She's covered her tracks, I reminded him. We look like the crazy ones, remember? The paranoid daughter-in-law and her browbeaten husband, accusing a church-going grandmother of witchcraft. Eric's phone rang. His business partner, James. I watched Eric's face change as he listened, growing paler with each second. What do you mean she called the investors? He grabbed his laptop, fingers flying over the keys. No, I never authorized that. James, I need you to... He stopped, staring at the screen. They withdrew? My heart sank. What happened? My mother called our primary investors, told them I was having a mental health crisis, that my wife was influencing me into making poor decisions, said she had power of attorney and was concerned about their investment. He laughed bitterly. They pulled out. All of them. The funding round we've worked on for 2 years, gone. The business Eric had poured his soul into, the future we'd planned together, Mary had destroyed it with a few phone calls. But something wasn't adding up. Eric, why would she sabotage the business? Rosa said she wanted access to your money. He was already pulling up documents. Unless, oh God, the insurance policy. If the business fails, there's a massive payout. And guess who I named as secondary beneficiary after you? Your mother. She must have found out about the clause. If the company folds due to circumstances beyond our control, the policy pays out $3 million. He turned to me, understanding dawning. She's not trying to control the business. She's trying to destroy it. And if something happens to you, she gets everything. I finished. We sat in the wreckage of her plan, finally seeing the full scope. This wasn't about keeping Eric close. It was about money, the power of attorney, the spiritual attacks, the business sabotage. Mary had orchestrated all of it for a payday. What do we do? Eric asked. I thought of Rosa's warnings, of the new moon approaching. We set a trap. Your mother thinks she's going to complete her ritual in 3 days. Let her think we're broken, that her plan is working. Meanwhile, we document everything. We hire a private investigator. We get proof even the police can't ignore. Eric nodded slowly. And the ritual? We'll be ready for that too. I have some calls to make. As Eric began calling lawyers and investigators, I texted Anne. Are you willing to help us end this? It might be dangerous. Her response was immediate. My grandmother wants to meet you. She says it's time someone taught Mrs. Patterson what happens when you use sacred things for evil purposes. Anne's grandmother lived in a small house that thrummed with unseen energy. Maria Esperanza was nothing like I expected. Instead of the frail elder I'd imagined, she was a force of nature wrapped in a flowered house dress. Her eyes, sharp as obsidian, assessed me as Anne made introductions. So, Maria said, you're the one fighting Mary Patterson's brujeria with lawyers and logic. Her laugh was rich with irony. Child, you can't prosecute a spiritual attack. Then what do I do? Maria led us to her kitchen table, where candles flickered around an elaborate altar. You turn her own weapons against her. Anne told me about the new moon ritual. Mary will need to be in your home, at a specific hour, with all her gathered materials. We change the locks. Locks mean nothing to someone who's been invited in so many times. The house knows her energy. Maria began pulling items from various drawers. But that familiarity works both ways. She'll be vulnerable during the ritual, her defenses down, focused on the work. Eric had stayed home to coordinate with the private investigator, but I'd been recording our conversation with Maria for him. She noticed and nodded approvingly. Smart. Document everything. The mundane authorities might not believe in witchcraft, but they believe in breaking and entering. She spread items on the table. White candles, mirrors, salt, and herbs I didn't recognize. Now, let me teach you about reversal work. For the next hour, Maria explained how Mary's own spells could be turned back on her. Every binding she'd cast, every energy she'd stolen, every intention she'd set, all of it created a spiritual debt that could be called due. The key, Maria said, is that she's been doing this from a place of greed and control, not love. That kind of work leaves marks, creates what we call spiritual backlash when exposed. Anne spoke up. Grandmother, tell her about the camera idea. Maria smiled. My granddaughter is clever. You'll set up cameras, yes, but also this. She handed me a small mirror wrapped in red thread. Place this where she'll perform the ritual. It will reflect her intentions back to her. When she realizes what's happening, she'll panic. That's when your mundane evidence becomes most useful. What exactly will happen to her? Maria's expression grew serious. Whatever she intended for you will visit her threefold. The headaches, the confusion, the isolation, all of it will return to sender. Some call it justice. I call it balance. My phone buzzed. A text from Eric. PI found something. Mary's been visiting Mama Elena weekly. Got photos of her buying supplies yesterday. Also, she rented a storage unit 6 months ago. I showed Maria, who nodded grimly. She's been planning this for longer than you knew. The storage unit probably holds her ritual materials, maybe evidence of past work. Can we get into it legally? The private investigator might find a way. Meanwhile, you prepare for the new moon. Make her think you're weak, fighting with Eric, falling apart. Let her confidence grow. The prouder she is, the harder she falls. As Anne and I prepared to leave, Maria pressed a cloth bag into my hands. Wear this until the ritual. It won't stop her work, but it will keep you clear-headed when she tries to confuse you. And Laura? She gripped my shoulders. Your marriage is stronger than her magic. Remember that. Driving home, Anne was quiet until we reached my street. Mrs. Laura, there's something else. I saw Mrs. Patterson yesterday at the grocery store. She was buying champagne. Expensive champagne, like she was planning to celebrate something. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Mary was so confident in her victory she was already buying celebration supplies. The image of her toasting my destruction made my decision crystal clear. Anne, can you work late on the new moon? I might need a witness. I'll be there, she promised. My grandmother said to tell you, the Patterson women have always been trouble. Mary's mother-in-law went through something similar back in the day, but Mary swore she'd never be like her mother-in-law. Anne laughed bitterly. Guess she became something worse. I pulled into my driveway to find Eric in the garage, installing new cameras. He looked up as I approached, his face grim but determined. The PI got into the storage unit, he said. You need to see what he found. The photos from the storage unit turned my blood cold. Mary hadn't just been planning my destruction. She'd been documenting it like a twisted scrapbook. The private investigator had found journals dating back to before Eric and I even met, where she'd written about finding the perfect wife for her son, someone she could control. When I came along, independent and unwilling to bend to her will, the journals turned darker. Look at this, Eric said, zooming in on one photo. It showed a bulletin board covered with pictures of me, at work, shopping, even through our bedroom window. Red string connected them like a conspiracy theorist's fever dream. She's been stalking you for years. But what chilled me most were the practice runs. Photos of ritual setups with other women's pictures, Eric's exes. Detailed notes about what worked, what didn't. Claire's headaches. Success after third attempt. Jessica's sudden sexuality crisis. Suggestion spell combined with social pressure. And others. Women Eric had casually dated who'd ghosted him for seemingly no reason. She's perfected her technique on them, I whispered. I'm just the final boss. The new moon was tomorrow night. We'd let Mary think we were crumbling. Eric had made a big show of sleeping on the couch when she'd stopped by unexpectedly. I'd answered the door with red eyes, courtesy of onions, and shaking hands. She'd left looking satisfied. Now we prepared our trap. Cameras in every corner, the mirrors Maria had given us strategically placed. The PI would be parked outside, ready to document her arrival. Anne would be in the guest room, ostensibly doing late-night organizing but really serving as our witness. Are you sure about this? Eric asked for the 100th time. We could just leave town, let her show up to an empty house. Then she wins, I said. She'll spin it as us running away, use it to prove I'm unstable. No, we end this tomorrow. That night, neither of us slept well. Eric held me tight, whispering apologies for his mother, for not seeing it sooner, for putting me through this. I stroked his hair and reminded him that victims of manipulation aren't responsible for their abusers' actions. The next evening came too quickly. At 11 p.m. we took our positions. Eric in his office with headphones on, pretending to work late. Me in bed, feigning sleep. Anne quietly organizing the guest room closet. The house felt charged with anticipation. At 11:47 I heard it, the soft click of a key in the lock. We'd deliberately left the old locks on the back door, betting Mary would use her copied key one last time. Through barely open eyes, I watched our bedroom door ease open. She moved like smoke, confident in her power. In her arms, a box of supplies. She began setting up near our bed, creating a circle of black salt. The mirrors we'd hidden caught the candlelight she produced, fracturing it into strange patterns she didn't notice in her concentration. I controlled my breathing, fighting every instinct to confront her. Through the cameras, Eric and the PI were watching, recording every moment. Mary pulled out items from her box, the wedding photo she'd stolen, my hairbrush, one of Eric's old shirts. She arranged them carefully, then began to whisper. The words were in a language I didn't recognize, but the intent was clear. She held up what looked like a poppet, a crude doll made from fabric and stuffed with herbs. As she whispered, she tied red thread around its middle, tighter and tighter. That's when the mirrors began to work. Mary's whispers turned to gasps. The poppet in her hands began to smoke. She dropped it, eyes wide, as the smoke formed shapes. Faces of all the women she'd driven away, including mine. The temperature plummeted. The candles flickered wildly. "No," she breathed. "This isn't right. This isn't..." The bedroom door burst open. Eric stood there, no longer pretending to be the oblivious son. "Hello, Mother." Mary spun, her ritual items scattering. "Eric, I can explain. I was protecting you. She's dangerous. She's... The only dangerous person in this room is you." His voice was steady, cold. "I've seen the storage unit, the journals, the photos. I know what you did to Claire, to Jessica, to every woman who ever cared about me." Mary's face cycled through emotions, fear, anger, and finally a horrible kind of righteousness. "They weren't good enough for you. None of them were. They would have taken you away, made you forget your mother, forgotten everything I sacrificed. You sacrificed my happiness for your obsession," Eric said. "And for what? Money? Control?" That's when Anne stepped out of the guest room, phone in hand. "I've called 911. They're on their way." Mary laughed, high and hysterical. "You think the police will believe you? That a grandmother was doing witchcraft?" She kicked at the salt circle, trying to destroy the evidence. But I sat up fully, holding my own phone. "They'll believe breaking and entering. They'll believe stalking when they see the storage unit. They'll believe harassment when they see the journals where you detailed your plans to destroy my life." Mary's confident mask finally shattered completely. She lunged for her ritual supplies, trying to grab the journals she'd foolishly brought with her, but Eric stepped between us. For a moment, mother and son stood face to face, years of manipulation and false love hanging between them like a funeral shroud. "Don't touch her," Eric said quietly. "Don't touch anything. You're done." "I'm your mother," Mary shrieked. "Everything I did was for you. To protect you from women who would use you, drain you, leave you. Like Dad left you?" The words hung in the air like a slap. Eric's voice was steady but full of pain. "That's what this is really about, isn't it? Dad found someone else, someone who didn't try to control his every breath, and you've been taking it out on every woman in my life since." Mary's face went white, then red. "How dare you? How dare you?" Eric roared, finally letting his anger show. "You drove away every woman I ever loved. You made me think I was cursed, unlovable, destined to be alone. And for what? So you could play puppet master? So you could have your precious baby boy all to yourself?" The mirrors Maria had blessed were still working their magic. The smoke from the failed ritual swirled around Mary, and in it, I swear I could see faces. Not just Eric's exes, but other women too. How many lives had she touched with her poison? Police sirens wailed in the distance. Mary heard them too, and made one last, desperate play. She fell to her knees, clutching at Eric's legs. "Please, son, I'm sick. I need help, not jail. You wouldn't send your sick mother to prison?" But Eric stepped back, leaving her kneeling in her own ritual circle. "You're right. You are sick. And you will get help. Court-mandated help, after you answer for what you've done." The police arrived with the PI, who'd been feeding them information. They took in the scene, the break-in, the ritual materials, the clearly terrified homeowners. One officer began taking photos, while another read Mary her rights. "Wait," Mary said suddenly, her voice different now, crafty, calculating. "I want to make a deal. I have information about Mama Elena's operation. She's been running more than just spiritual services. Money laundering, tax evasion, connections to some very dangerous people." The officers paused, interested. But I'd had enough. "Record everything she says," I told them. "But she doesn't get to trade her way out of what she's done to us. To all of us." As they led Mary away, she turned back one last time. The grandmother mask was completely gone now, replaced by something ancient and bitter. "You think you've won? I've been inside your life for years. The seeds I've planted will grow. You'll never be free of me." Anne stepped forward, surprising everyone. "Mrs. Patterson, my grandmother has a message for you. She says the seeds you plant with hate grow only poison, and poison always returns to the gardener." Mary's face contorted, but she said nothing more. The police took her away, leaving Eric and me standing in our bedroom, surrounded by the debris of her final ritual. The next hours blurred together. Police statements, evidence documentation, calls to lawyers. The PI had done excellent work. Between the storage unit evidence and what they'd caught tonight, Mary faced charges of stalking, breaking and entering, harassment, and possibly fraud related to the power of attorney documents. As dawn broke, Eric and I sat on our porch, exhausted but free. Anne had long since gone home, promising to return later to help clean up. The house felt different now, lighter, as if Mary's oppressive energy had finally been banished. "I'm sorry," Eric said for what must have been the 50th time. "I should have seen it. Should have protected you. She was your mother," I replied. "We're wired to trust our parents, to believe they want what's best for us. She never wanted what was best for me. She wanted what was best for her." He pulled me close. "Laura, I need you to know. Nothing she said was true. You're not dangerous or a gold digger or any of the things she tried to make me believe. You're the best thing that ever happened to me." I leaned into him, feeling the warmth of the sunrise on our faces. "I know. And we're going to be okay. Better than okay. We're going to build the life we want, without her shadow over us." Eric's phone buzzed. A text from the lawyer. Mary was being held without bail, considered a flight risk. The storage unit had yielded even more evidence. Documentation of the harm she'd done to others. Enough to keep her busy with legal troubles for years to come. But there was one more thing to do. That evening, Maria Esperanza arrived with Anne. She walked through our house with burning sage, not for binding or controlling, but for cleansing. At each corner, she spoke words of protection and peace. When she reached our bedroom, where Mary had performed her last ritual, she paused. "The mirrors worked perfectly," she said. Her own hatred turned back on her. "The energy she stole from others has been returned. Your home is clean." As she prepared to leave, Maria pressed something into my hand. A small silver charm. "For protection. Real protection. Born of love and strength. Wear it or don't. But know that the best shield against darkness is the light you carry within." The courtroom was packed. Word had gotten out about the witchcraft stalker case, and reporters filled the back rows. Mary sat at the defendant's table, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. Gone was the confident manipulator. In her place sat a woman facing the consequences of years of abuse. Eric testified first, his voice steady as he detailed the pattern of his mother's behavior over the years. The prosecutor presented evidence from the storage unit, journals, photos, ritual materials, and most damningly recordings Mary had made of herself performing the rituals, apparently to track their effectiveness. When Claire took the stand via video link, I saw Mary flinch. Eric's ex-girlfriend, now a successful surgeon in Seattle, described the mysterious headaches that only stopped when she left the state. "I thought I was going crazy," she said. "The doctors found nothing wrong. But Mrs. Patterson kept visiting, bringing me tea, insisting it would help. The headaches got worse after every visit. Jessica appeared in person, flanked by her wife. She spoke about the confusion and fear she'd experienced, the sudden intrusive thoughts about her sexuality that made no sense. "I'm bisexual," she clarified. But the way those thoughts came on, so suddenly and specifically after Mrs. Patterson's prayer sessions, it wasn't natural. It wasn't me. 3 other women testified, each with similar stories. Women who dated Eric briefly before fleeing, convinced something was deeply wrong with the family. The prosecutor painted a picture of a serial predator who used psychological manipulation wrapped in spiritual practice to destroy lives. The defense tried to play the mental illness card, bringing in experts to testify about delusional disorders and religious fixations. But the calculated nature of Mary's actions, the detailed journals, the financial motives, they all pointed to someone who knew exactly what she was doing. When I took the stand, Mary stared at me with naked hatred. I spoke about finding the pouches, the break-ins, the ritual items under our bed. But more than that, I talked about the fear, the gaslighting, the way she'd tried to make me doubt my own sanity. She didn't just want me gone, I said. She wanted me erased. From Eric's life. From my own life. She wanted to hollow me out and leave nothing behind. The prosecutor presented the final piece of evidence, a video from Mama Elena, who'd cut a deal for immunity. The so-called spiritual advisor detailed how Mary had paid her thousands of dollars for increasingly dark services. She wanted to know how to break a soul bond, Elena said on the recording. I told her such things carry a heavy price. She said she'd pay anything. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts: stalking, breaking and entering, harassment, fraud, and the rarely used charge of malicious use of pretended witchcraft for criminal purposes. The judge sentenced her to 15 years, with mandatory psychiatric treatment. As they led Mary away, she turned to look at Eric one last time. I loved you, she said. Everything I did was from love. Eric's response was quiet, but carried through the courtroom. That wasn't love, Mom. Love doesn't destroy. Love builds. Outside the courthouse, we faced the media briefly. Eric read a prepared statement about the importance of recognizing abuse, even when it comes from family, especially when it comes wrapped in the guise of love or protection. That night, we held a different kind of ritual, not for binding or banishing, but for healing. Maria Esperanza had suggested it, a way to reclaim our space and our story. Friends gathered in our backyard. Anne was there with her grandmother. Claire and Jessica had stayed for it, forming an unexpected bond with each other and with me. Even Rosa Medina came, looking satisfied that justice had been served. We built a small fire in our fire pit. One by one, we threw in symbols of what Mary had tried to do. The pouches, in evidence bags we were allowed to destroy, printed copies of her journal pages, photos of the ritual circles she'd drawn in our home. As the smoke rose into the night sky, I felt something shift. The weight I'd carried for so long began to lift. Eric took my hand, and together we watched the last remnants of his mother's influence turn to ash and drift away on the wind. The business Eric had lost was gone, but new investors had appeared, drawn by the media attention and impressed by how we'd handled the crisis. We were rebuilding, stronger than before. The house felt like ours now, truly ours, with no shadows lurking in the corners. As the gathering wound down, Maria pulled me aside. You've learned something important, she said. Real power doesn't come from controlling others. It comes from standing in your truth, protecting what you love, and refusing to let darkness win. 6 months later, life had settled into a new rhythm. Eric was in therapy, working through the complex grief of losing the mother he thought he had, while mourning the one he'd never really known. Our marriage was stronger for having survived the storm. Mary sent a letter once, from prison. Eric burned it unread. I've heard everything she has to say, he explained. Now it's time to listen to better voices. We'd installed a security system, but more for peace of mind than real fear. The mirrors Maria had blessed still hung in our bedroom, but now they reflected only love and light. Anne still worked for us, and had become more friend than employee, often staying for dinner and sharing stories of her grandmother's continued spiritual work in the community. The healing kind, not the harmful. I stood in the kitchen one morning, making coffee in the same spot where I'd first found Anne's note. The morning sun streamed through the window, warming my face. Eric came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "Penny, for your thoughts? Just thinking about how different everything is now. How free we are." He kissed my temple. Free to build our own life, without anyone pulling the strings. Now I want to hear from you. What would you have done in Laura's place? Leave your comment, like this video, and don't forget to subscribe. And if you want another powerful story, click on the video appearing to your left.